Hey all, it's Starzy, and today we are talking about the books that I've read in April and May. Yes, we are wrapping up 2 months because it has been a while, because I got COVID and it hit me really hard to the extent that like weeks later I'm still feeling the impact of it. So that's where I've been. But since I have been feeling so awful, it does mean that reading is one of the only things I've been doing. So I've definitely read more than some other months. So I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. We don't want to be here all day. I will say that most of the things I read in April have already been featured in vlogs, so I probably won't talk too much about those books today. And you can go to those vlogs for more detailed thoughts if you're interested. Cool. Anyone watched Stranger Things, the recent season? We've got some weird shadows going on, but we're just gonna have to deal with it because we want to get through this. So let's start with the books I read in April that were not in vlogs. I believe the first thing I read in April was Tender as the Flesh. My reading journal, I grabbed the wrong notebook and don't have my reading journal, so can't tell you the author's name. But this is a horror which I feel like it has the power to make everyone at least briefly consider vegetarianism because, oh boy, the concept of this is that animals are no longer viable to eat. They're like diseased or something's happened. So rather than just, giving up meat, the governments have sanctioned raising humans specifically for meat purposes, and so people are eating people. And you also get a really close look at it all in all its bloody detail because our main character works at one of these meat plants. So very disturbing. I do think it's effective in what it's trying to do, though I did question a couple of things, such as the fact that there don't seem to be any vegetarians. That doesn't seem to even be an option, which just seems bizarre when you consider how much vegetarianism and veganism is growing in recent years. So for the fact that everyone is on board with this seemed a little strange, and I definitely feel like there's some missed opportunity there. But I can't say that I enjoyed this because of the subject matter, but I do think it was effective in what it was doing. So I think it was a decent book, just a lot. It was a lot. The other book I read before I started vlogging was Deceived by Gargoyles, I think it's called. This is a monster romance. Obviously gargoyles, the woman in particular is a witch, and then there are several male gargoyles. So it's one of those situations, one woman, multiple monster men, though she doesn't realize that what she's getting into at the very beginning. I enjoyed this, and it kind of kicked me off on my monster romance binge because I then did a monster romance reading vlog. So I definitely enjoyed this. I didn't necessarily love every single thing about it, especially when it comes to these smutty romances. Some things are going to be so personal in terms of your taste, and so some things weren't necessarily to my taste, but overall I enjoyed it. And like outside of the bedroom, the relationships were quite wholesome and sweet, so I did enjoy this. I like a good monster romance, what can I say? Because then we get into the 4 books that I read for my monster romance reading vlog, so you can jump on over to that if you're interested. But I read The Dragon's Bride by Tiffany Roberts, which was okay until the end, and then I had kind of a big problem with how something was handled. I also read by Tiffany Roberts, is it called Enthralled or Ensnared? Something like that. A alien romance, but it's like a spider-like creature. I actually really liked this. I also read in that vlog Her Soul to Take, a demon romance, which was also quite intense outside of the romance because there was also kind of murder and violence going on. So it was definitely an intense read, but I also really enjoyed this one. And then I also read Lady of Rookgrave Manor, I think it's called, which is a reverse harem, a bunch of different types of monsters. And this one was a little bit much for me personally, but I know lots of people like that one. The other vlog I did was reading 3 books that friends had recommended to me. So I read With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, which was Julia's recommendation, YA contemporary. I did like this. I didn't love it, but I liked it more than I was expecting to, given that I generally don't really vibe with YA contemporaries. Also read Lady Helen and the Dark Days Club, which was Ali and Vanessa's recommendation. This is YA, historical, paranormal. I did really enjoy this. And then the last book I read in that vlog was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, which my friend Richie recommended to me. This is a horror, and I did really like this as well. If you want to hear any of my actual thoughts on those vlogs exist, but we've still got a whole bunch of books to get through. So let's jump into some other things I read. Given 1 or 2 of these I might have read in April and I just don't remember. Regardless, they've definitely been read in the past couple of months. Let's start with the things I physically have, mostly from the library. This is not going to be in order of when I actually read them. I have a few comic books here. I have Black Canary and Zatanna Bloodspell. Honestly, I don't even remember like anything about this, so I think I might have read this in April. I think there were some nice moments between characters, otherwise I genuinely don't really remember what happened. I feel like it was a pretty average story, but there were some nice moments that I still liked about it. And then I also read 2 volumes of Bombshells, which, what's this? Allies and Uprising, which is volumes 2 and 3 of Bombshells. The art of these I really love. This is a bunch of DC heroines in like World War II era. I think I enjoyed 3 more than 2. Mostly because give me Harley and Ivy being cute together and I'm gonna instantly love something, and that definitely happened in the 3rd volume. They are my OTP. They are, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I did really enjoy these, although I think I gave 2 3 stars and 3 4 stars because I was won over by Harley and Ivy. Not like amazing, but like fun comic books. And also because they're like their own type of thing, you could probably readable without reading other DC comics because they're not connected to like modern, like current events and stuff, you know, because it's like an alternative setting for them. I also listened to Return to Dell by Emily Rodda, which is the last book in the Del Toro Quest series, which is my favorite series from my childhood. It's like middle grade fantasy. They're very, very short. I was surprised that these, I feel, kind of do hold up. Like obviously they're children's books, but they do still hold up and they do still surprise me in terms of how dark they are for children's books. I don't know whether anything particularly like exciting happened in the last book and like I remembered the key plot points anyway. But like I really enjoyed reading this series. You know, you've got 3 characters going on a quest, collecting gems for a belt to try and drive out evil from the realm basically. And it was a good time, and it was a good time rereading these as an adult, even though it took me a long time to do so. I also read Cinderella is Dead. This was, I think, like one of my most anticipated reads the year it came out, just because like I love fairy tale retellings, and the cover is absolutely gorgeous. But I did not read it until now. One of the reasons was that I saw a lot of kind of average reviews of it, and I don't disagree with that. Like, I didn't dislike this book, but I definitely didn't love it. Like it was just an okay read. But the whole concept in this is that like Cinderella is dead, where Cinderella has become almost treated like a religious figure, and very much used as a way for the current monarchy to regain power. Like this tale of Cinderella is told kind of like stories of the Bible would be told. And then there's this whole situation where girls have to go to a ball to be picked out by men, and the men are all awful. And yeah, there were a lot of interesting ideas in this, and I love fairy tale retellings and seeing what people have done with fairy tales, but I feel like a lot of it just didn't quite land for me, I think is where I landed on this. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was just... I also listened to Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, which I actually listened to like a third to a half of this book on the plane because we went to Sydney in April and then I finished it off in May. I really enjoyed this, although I will admit at points I kind of had no idea what was going on. It was very confusing at several moments, but like I was still enjoying the ride. This generally gets sold as lesbian necromancers in space. We definitely have a main character who is a lesbian, and there's, yeah, death, magic, and weird stuff going on where people are trapped somewhere and people keep dying, and there's a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on, but I will say the ending particularly kind of ramped things up and was like, oh my goodness. So I'm definitely interested to see where this goes next. Confusing, a lot going on, but I enjoyed the ride, you know? Enjoyed the ride. And this is actually another book that was one of my recommendations when I did that 12 months, 12 recommendations thing. This was Madi's recommendation. I also read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, which is a horror I've always been interested in. I saw it at my library, picked it up. I thought this was really interesting. I did like this. It's hard. I've read so many books in the past couple of months that some of them kind of blend together a little bit for me, but I do remember really liking this, and there was definitely some weird stuff going on. I think I gave it, if I rated it, I probably rated it 4 stars. But we have this woman who goes out to check out on her cousin because her cousin has sent some kind of concerning letters about her circumstances and the family she's living with, because she's recently married someone and moved in with that family in this isolated location. And yeah, there is some weird stuff going down. There is some weird stuff going down. I like weird horror crap, so it had me on board. I also read In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. This was another one of my 12 recommendations. I think Jay recommended this to me. This is a YA, is it YA fantasy? I feel like it says it's YA fantasy, but the characters are also older than characters in YA usually are. Like, I think they were young adults rather than teenagers. But regardless of the specific classification, this is a story. I'm trying to think, what was the specific plot? I honestly don't remember what the plot was. I'm pretty sure this had some kind of death magic in it as well. And we had pansexual characters. We had, I think there was an ace character. Something that was really interesting in this that I haven't really seen in many books, if any at all, that I've read, was there was polyamory. So it was really interesting to see all of those things, all of that representation. That was great. This was a book that like kept me interested, but I also didn't like fall in love with it. As much as I don't remember the plot now, weeks later, I know that one of the things that stopped me from kind of loving this was like the character relationships didn't feel very developed, and a lot of things were kind of rushed through. So when stuff was happening at the end of the book particularly, it didn't feel like it had the emotional impact that it was perhaps supposed to have, because it didn't feel like the characters had had time to progress to that point emotionally with each other, kind of thing. But yeah, there were still interesting moments, and I liked some of the things going on, but not like a new favorite. It was alright. It was alright. I'm trying to think whether I even rated all these books. Who knows? Who knows whether I rated these on Goodreads or not? But like 3.5 maybe? Let's have a look at what else I read. I listened to The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. I really enjoyed Mia Sosa's previous romance, so I was interested in this. This is a brand new release. I didn't love this one. Like, it was okay and engaging and got me through it. but I was disappointed in it. We follow a woman who crashes a wedding because she sees the bride talking to a friend and like confessing her love to him, basically. So she like walks into the wedding and tells the groom, and then circumstances are that she ends up bonding with the groom later. I think from memory, again, this is one I've listened to weeks ago now. From memory, I didn't love the dynamics and the character types from the very beginning weren't ones that were particularly clicking with me personally. So I know that was bothering me, and the way some things were being done. Like the first half of the book, I think even, I wasn't really enjoying it, but it did pick up for me. I ended up rating this 3 stars. So the second half of the book, I guess I did enjoy, but like the first half, I wasn't really vibing with it. So I guess that's why things ended up like that. Again, I've read too many books, and this was weeks ago. I also read Witchcraft Therapy by Madi M. This was a witchcraft book. I didn't love this one. It was okay for what it was, but it was just, I don't know, didn't fully click with me, but it is what it is. I read it. I also read Dungeons and Dragons and Philosophy, which is from a series of like pop culture philosophy books. I have a degree in philosophy myself. Like, I'm really interested in philosophy, and I play Dungeons and Dragons, so this is something I picked up and was reading. Honestly, at like lunchtimes at work and stuff. And the problem I kind of have with these books is they don't go into much depth, and there's a lot of ideas that are kind of just glanced over. There's also definitely essays that I don't agree with, because the way these are structured, there's like essay from a bunch of different contributors related to the topic the book's on. And there are definitely essays I didn't agree with. And the other thing with this book is that it was published before 5e existed, which is the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons. And so some of the stuff they were talking about I wasn't as familiar with, because although I did start technically on a system that wasn't 5e, 5e is the one I'm most familiar with. So some things have changed since these essays. So I gave it 3 stars. It was still like surface level interesting, but the essays just weren't quite enough for me, and some of the subject matter and the views didn't appeal to me entirely. So like, I gave it a 3 stars. I think that's everything that I've read in the past couple of months, I think. Yeah, that's where I've been, being pretty sick and reading a lot. I haven't really been streaming either because I've been that sick, so haven't been online much in general, but I read a bunch of books. There they are. Let me know what you think of any of these books, or let me know what your favourite thing that you read in the past couple of months was. Obviously, I also watched Stranger Things, and we've also been watching Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I've been seeing a lot of criticisms of, and a lot of the criticisms are kind of sexist, let's be honest. But we did not have time to get into that. I definitely have a lot of thoughts when it comes to those 2 shows, but we did not have time. We did not have time to get into that today, but yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Thank you for continuing to check in on me, even though I post so inconsistently, and I will see you next time. TT Fen and Starzy out.